Alright, so the Revolutionary War had many defining moments, but there's one moment in particular that I believe should have more recognition, and that is the capture of Major John Andre. John Andre's life was interesting from the start all the way until his untimely end, and so I separated it in this presentation into three different key points. So his early life, his military and colonial life, and then the ending of his life and when he was involved with the intelligence portion of the military. So his early life, he was born in London in 1750 to a Swiss father and a French mother. And he was very charismatic and educated for his young age. He spoke 4 different languages and was very in touch with the arts. He painted, wrote lyrics, played the flute. And he could also be described as a ladies' man. He wrote poetry for women across London, and it was a falling out with one woman in particular that led him to join the army. And so he was stationed in Canada as a British lieutenant, and while there, his fort that he was commanding actually got taken over by the American army, so he was deemed a prisoner of war. And so they transported him to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where as a lieutenant, he was able to stay with the family there instead of living in the barracks. Eventually, he gained his freedom through a prisoner swap deal, and while living in Pennsylvania, he actually lived in Benjamin Franklin's house for a little bit, and he eventually got promoted to Chief Intelligence Officer for the British Army. So being Chief Intelligence Officer meant he dealt with all of the spies and people related to that, which included Benedict Arnold. And Andre was actually the one who convinced him to forfeit West Point, which was the fort that Arnold was in charge of at the time. Initially, the bribe was £10,000, but that was later up to £20,000. And I did some research, and according to the Bank of England, their inflation calculator had that at about £3.5 million in today's money. And so on September 21st, 1779, he was given the paperwork that finalized the surrender of it and detailed the plan on how the British should attack. But when he went to leave, he found out his escape ship came under fire, so he had to spend the night in American territory at the time. And so he went out on foot the next day trying to escape, and being in American territory, he dressed as an American soldier. And near the boundary, he ran into American bandits who were dressed as British officers. And thinking he was on the British side of the territory, he mistakenly gave away his identity as a British officer. And so the bandits then quickly figured out who he actually was and arrested him. And they found the paperwork that detailed Benedict Arnold's surrender, and then arrested Andre for it and sentenced him to be hung. And so the repercussions of this, well, Washington had planned to make a surprise visit to West Point at the time that it was going to be taken over. So if he had done that, then Washington would have been taken prisoner as the fort went to the British, and that would have been a death blow to the American side. And so without the bandits, then America wouldn't be where it's at today, because they wouldn't have stopped Andre, and the British would have likely won the Revolutionary War. Thank you.